Welcome back to another episode of the Comic Dudes. We are on our third Invincible conversation. This month we read volumes 5 and 6 of the trade paperback. If you don't remember where we left off last month, the last thing that we read ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. Mark comes home. Eve is waiting on his bed in his room. She says, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And that's where we pick up on page 1 of volume 5 of the trade. So there's a lot that happened in this one. I do want to say before we jump into it, I was doing a little bit of refreshing because I read volume 5 a couple weeks ago. I was doing a little refreshing on the Kindle Cloud Reader on my second monitor, and it is still dog shit, if anyone was curious. Still a very bad experience. Pages don't load fast. Sometimes they don't load at all. Very miserable to try to look at anything in the Cloud Reader on the Kindle app because Amazon doesn't care about how well your reading experience goes when you're reading digital comics that you've purchased through their platform. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about Invincible.
It's a good plug. There was so much that went on over these chapters. I mean,
a lot of words.
Really even know.
A lot of words.
Yeah. So this was
the wordiest Kirkman stuff that I remember in the entirety of Invincible and everything else he's ever written. This is
a lot of exposition, a lot of explaining.
Yeah.
Man, so the whole Eve thing. I know Eve is like one of your favorite characters in this whole thing, and pretty much she's 86. She bounces in this. She's out. Yeah. She's done being a superhero, done with the rigmarole of everything, and takes off. And that's not kind of what I expected, you know.
She pulled the Peter Parker from Amazing Spider-Man number 50, puts the costume in the trash, walks away from it all. Can't do it.
Yeah, like that was just.
Although it's not quite the same. She wants to help people. Peter just wanted to stop being Spider-Man.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like the whole reason she's leaving is to go to, other underserved countries and, actually do something with the powers instead of like just punching things, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, actually wants to do something. So
there's also a moment in that encounter where you can tell Eve wants to tell Mark that she has some feelings for him beyond just friendship, and then she pauses and she doesn't. That conversation doesn't happen. But I have that written down. It's one of my notes from volume 5, which this is we get a lot of Mark and Amber in volume 5.
Yes.
Which is good. I think it's important to establish that, they're together and Mark's not a scummy dude and Eve wasn't gonna get in the way of that either. They were really friends first, and I think that that's important to things coming later for Mark and Eve. It's important to have that strong foundation of friendship sometimes, so I appreciated that.
Yeah, there was just like, I don't know, for me reading this, there was the whole like, I guess like first trade was more like the college stuff, dealing with Amber, finding out like there's so many characters that like I forgot, and I'm so happy we're going through and rereading this whole thing. Like there's this really like shitty classmate that's a classmate of Mark and Williams named D.A. Sinclair, and he's just like, I'm going to show up to class. I'm going to be here when I want. I'm so smart. I don't necessarily need to be here. And like him and the professor have like an exchange or whatever. And I forgot that character is like the creator of the Reaniman. Like that whole, he's the Reaniman guy. And like his whole, I forgot like Kirkman, his whole backstory of like why he created the Reaniman was like, he just wanted to like bring his grandmother back and like have his grandmother again. But that it went horribly wrong, like all things. So we got like a lot of like origin kind of stories. You got the D.A. Sinclair origin story.
Also interesting about the D.A. Sinclair stuff is that we are now we're in volume 5 of what, 21 or 22 23. I don't
Yeah,
remember how
I
many.
think it's like
Um,
25 maybe
it
trades. I
might
think
be.
it's
I
a
don't.
lot.
I don't remember because I didn't read it in trade initially. But um, we're still getting things that happened in season 1 of the show
Yeah.
in volume 5 now of the comic. We are 20 some. We're in the late 20s in terms of issue count, and still stuff that like was taken to conclusion in 8 episodes of the show,
Sure. Okay.
appearing
Yep.
for the first time. Like the D.A. Sinclair stuff was like 1 episode of the show.
Okay.
That was it. Like he shows up basically uh in the middle of that episode with the Reanimen, and he's like working with Cecil by episode 8 or episode 7. Like it happens fast, which
That's
does not happen the same way obviously in the comic, but
why I love the comic, man. You get a little more of those little nuggets in there.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, Also, we got to one of your favorite origin stories, which was Angstrom Levy's origin story and how so so pretty much he had this machine and he had all these Angstrom Levys from all different multiverses here, and he was trying to combine their knowledge into himself. For what purpose? I missed that. Like, what is he
So that's
ultimately
the
trying
that's
to
the
do?
thing. Like Angstrom starts out as a relatively altruistic character.
Okay.
His sole motivation in all of this is the pursuit of knowledge.
Okay. Like, all
He
right.
goes and gathers every version of himself at every dimension where he can find one, and then builds not just one machine but multiple machines whereby he can have all of their memories transferred into him. So he would have all of their knowledge of all their various universes, technology, medicinal, everything that's happened in every known dimension that he could get to, for really the purpose of betterment of mankind, which is,
Okay.
I think it's an interesting dynamic where the Mahler twins are like willing to help him out. I think it continues to blur the lines on the Mahler twins as to whether or not they're actual villains or just sort of guys in pursuit of their own ends, and sometimes those means are villainous and sometimes they're not. Um, and I do really like the Mahler twins, and I like the whole dynamic of who's the clone and who's not the clone. And we get a really fun back and forth about that in the first trade as well. Or actually, I think maybe it's in volume 6. I don't remember. It's somewhere in there. But with Angstrom, he doesn't start out as a villain. He's just a dude trying to learn the secrets of the multiverse. And there's one little nugget of dialogue between him and the Mahler twins. I don't know if you caught this, but he said that he went to one dimension where a virus had killed all of the males, which was
I
a
did.
little nod to Why the Last
Why the
Man.
last man? Okay, I did. I did catch that.
Yeah, I thought
Uh,
that was a fun little tip of the cap from Kirkman,
yeah,
because Y is also one of my all time favorite comics, and the show
a show.
it was okay, but not good
I'm
enough to
thinking.
get another season.
I'm thinking DMZ. Never mind. That was the one where you're like,
DMZ was
absolutely not.
bad.
Yeah,
Why the Last Man
that's the one I'm
was
thinking.
okay. DMZ
Yeah.
was a train wreck, in my opinion, in my not so humble opinion. It's not a humble opinion at all. Actually, it's very emotional.
Yeah, but so long story short, there ends up being a fight when Angstrom is trying to combine all these multiversal angstroms into his mind and with the
Mm,
aid of the Mahler twins, right?
yes, but it's more so a misunderstanding because Cecil has the Mahler twins under surveillance, and when they find out that they're doing something, they assume villainy. And then that's when Cecil calls Invincible and says, "Hey, you need to go shut
Go.
this thing down."
Okay.
So again, not really. Who knows what would have happened had Mark or the U.S. government not interfered?
In a different world. In a different world.
Because
I don't know.
because obviously, at the end of this, you get Angstrom Levy, and he is pretty disfigured
Yeah.
and very angry. Um, but before all of that happened, he is screaming to the Mauler twins, and there are many, many, many Mauler twins because they brought versions of the Mauler twins from other dimensions here to help build the machines. While fighting, not only does Angstrom tell them to not let Mark turn the machine off, he also tells them to not kill Mark. And he says very specifically, I will not have that child's blood on my hands.
Yeah.
And ultimately what happens is Angstrom interrupts the process himself. There's a panel where he is seen starting to take off the little contraption that's on his head. And that's what ultimately causes everything to explode and kind of go off the rails.
Okay.
And after that, he has obviously gone through a very traumatic injury. His brain is like growing out his back and on his shoulders, and his head is huge and brainy. And he says that he remembers very clearly that Mark interfered and caused the machine to malfunction and interrupted the process. And he blames Mark when, in fact, moments before, he was actually trying to protect Mark and was seemingly on the side of the angels. And then, accident happens, and all of a sudden, an arch nemesis is born through no fault of Mark's whatsoever.
This man's going in. He's well read, lady. He's ready to go. He's ready to go.
Yeah, of course.
He said he's not playing around. He said it last episode. He's not busting around.
No, I'm in this, man. This is, you wanted to read my favorite comic of all time and then talk about it. So yeah, I'm going to show up with a lot to talk about.
He's going to come correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think, I know this is absolute blasphemy for you as the Invincible guy. Do you think, so in the hardcover, there was an interlude issue. And it
was like the Pact #4 or something.
Yeah, it like explained everything up to this point. You know what I'm gonna ask? It would be blasphemy, but my first question is: could that be the jumping on point for you? Like it, no, it explained everything, and then the next issue literally picked up panel right where that issue ended.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because if you don't have the reveal of the death of the Guardians of the Globe, and
it's covered in there, it's in one panel.
Doesn't matter.
It's in one panel.
Doesn't matter. You have to experience. You can't experience that by way of re-narration back to you. You have to experience it in the moment, and then everything that happens with Mark and Nolan when Mark finds out again. Yeah, it's recapped there in like 6 panels or whatever, but you have to read. That's one of the single greatest issues of this entire series. You're doing yourself a disservice.
It's the Hickman page. The Hickman page.
Hate it. I don't hate it. I don't hate anything that is Invincible. But I do hate the Hickman prose pages quite a bit.
Do you think, and my second question is, do you think that issue or those pages, like, do you think the series kind of caught on at that point? And that was
caught on prior to that, but that was a jumping on point in the series when it was published.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Because like that's, to me, that's what the whole purpose of that is for, is to get new readers on that will not go back and read the issues.
Yeah, that was
as
a jumping on
blasphemous
point.
as it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we also got some other important things in Volume 5. We got some really good backstory on Alan the alien. My man Alan, a polarizing figure in the comic, I think.
Why?
You'll remember it when we get to it, but it's later. It's much later.
Yeah.
But he's still, he's a little polarizing.
Not right now.
Not right now. He's great now. That was a good issue too, because you also get to see. That's really the first time you see Viltrumites other than Nolan do something pretty crazy. They knock that dude's eye out, they rip his guts out, leave him for dead floating in space. Like
that whole issue was gassing him up there. He was like the Superman of their kind, pretty much, and he gets just wiped in like 2 pages.
But that's such a great setup, because it puts the Viltrumites in such a unique position. As the reader, you fear the Viltrumites because you've spent all this time, like, you saw Mark and Nolan go at it, and you're like, okay, whatever. Like, They're from Viltrum, and there's there's a theoretical army of Viltrumites that go out and colonize planets. Okay, but then when you see three of them show up and do what they did to Alan, who has held his own against Nolan and Mark for years and years and years, it's a little shocking.
Yeah.
And of
No.
course, the cartoony gore that is in this comic is second to none, and that was just a really great. It was very very fast and decisive and brutal, and it really lets you know that not only is the Viltrum Empire like for real, but they can do what they want to who they want whenever they want, and there's really no
However they
one.
want to, however they feel about it.
Yeah, there's
However they
no one
want
that's going to
it.
stop them. And
Yeah.
we'll talk about that more in this episode when we get to Volume 6, because there's more of that coming too. But there's a couple of things in Volume 5 I wanted to get to.
Yeah, you get to them.
Unless you had more stuff for Volume 5.
I mean, I had some stuff, but like, I just don't remember the Mauler twins. Like, I remember them being like joke characters and ha ha ha. But the whole like Angstrom issue, like, they put the brakes on Invincible. Like, they beat him down, and
Yeah.
I just did not remember that. Like,
Yeah, the
I
Mauler
just
twins are
remember
no
them being
joke.
like, I remember them being like, "Oh, you're the clone. No, you're the clone." Like the comedy relief. Nah,
Yeah.
dude, they put the boots on that man. Like they beat him down.
So do you remember what happened? Actually, hold on. Before I get into that, I'll bridge that into our Volume 6 discussion. But there's
Okay.
also in the trade paperback version that I read, at the end of it, there was like a lot of shorts that
See,
gave
yeah,
origins of different characters. So you got the origin of Monster Girl, you got sort of the origin of Eve, you got the origin of Rex. There's one more. I want to say it was Immortal. Yeah, you get the origin of Immortal. Oh, and Duplicate.
so
So you
it's,
got
I
all
gotta
of
go
their
back and read that.
origins. I didn't read them this time. I've read them in the past. I wasn't sure if you had those and what you had read.
I didn't read
Um,
them. They were in there, but I
all
didn't read
right,
them.
so good. We
I ran
both
out of
skipped that.
time.
Perfect. So we don't have to talk about it.
I ran out of time. I was just like, oh, the one bridge issue I read because it was
Uh,
like the Mark and Amber issue on the bed. I was like, oh,
yeah.
I'm gonna read this because yeah, I was like origin
So
stories, whatever.
speaking of Mark and Amber, Mark tells Amber that he's invincible,
Oh yeah,
much to Debbie's dismay.
yeah,
There's a really funny conversation at his Mark's house with his mom where she's like going through all the people that now know he's invincible and how she's very concerned about it. And also Kirkman implies to us that Mark loses his virginity with Amber, but we find out later that they did in fact not do that.
yeah.
But he does spend the night in her dorm. So some more Mark and Amber stuff, and then there's also there's a fight that happens somewhere in there with like an octopus villain.
The squid guy,
Yeah,
squid
yeah.
army guys, big octopus guy.
Yeah. I like him. I'm just gonna call out. He's gonna be in the comic again later. And if I'm remembering correctly, I didn't read ahead to check myself, so you can come back and you can come back to this moment and tell me that I was right or wrong if you want to. But I feel like if I'm remembering correctly, when he comes back, it's kind of sad. Like there's a moment of
I think you're right.
there's a moment of him not being kind of goofy, and you find out why he speaks the way that he speaks, and it's not just because English isn't his primary language. Like there's something else going on there. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I feel like that's sort of a tragic character when we'll find that out much later in the comic.
Did you catch, like, I think we're going to talk about it, like, Mark ends up going off world and comes back, but like they mentioned that the octopus guy was like taking over, like they barely beat him.
Mm-hmm.
I was just I caught that. I was like, he had another run when Mark was gone with the like squid guys.
Yeah.
So I was just like, that was funny.
So
that was 5 for me. 6, dude. Oh man.
So before we get to 6, I want to bridge into 6 with more Mauler twins, because at the end of 5, when that explosion happens and we create Angstrom Levy as a villain, the one surviving Mauler twin is horribly disfigured.
Yeah.
So he clones himself, as a Mauler twin is apt to do once one dies, because there always has to be 2 or they wouldn't be twins. And it's very obvious after that one is the original and one is the clone. Obviously, they're all clones of clones at this point anyway, but there's a really fun and I think this actually happens at the beginning of volume 6, but there's a really fun exchange between the two where like the disfigured Mauler kind of turns the other one into a servant because it's obvious that he was the original and the other one was the clone. So the clone poisons him, and then clones himself again. So there's like a realization of, hey, our dynamic fails
Is
if we
off.
know
Yeah.
which one is the original. We have to have that air of who is and who isn't for us to be at our best. So he takes care of business, poisons the original, and then creates a clone, which I thought, it's just one of those really interesting and fun things that is littered throughout this comic book. But that takes us
For
into
sure.
volume 6. I have strong thoughts about 6, but not a lot of notes written down. So if you have some
So
stuff you want to get off your chest.
the most important thing that happens in volume 6 to me is another appearance by the comic book guy where he
That's the
talks
most
about
important thing to you.
where he talks about, and I've seen this conversation take place at the LCS, a one fan crapping on another fan for collecting a book, and then the fan that was crapping on the newer fan is like, yeah, I still collect that book, but like they're just buying this book they don't like, and that was pretty much the conversation about Science Dog. That the comic shop guy was crapping on Mark for still picking up Science Dog, but he himself still picks up Science Dog. I
one
thought
of
that was
three. One of
hilarious.
three people still pulling
Yeah,
it.
exactly. One of the three that's still pulling it. Um, yeah, but
That's
no,
not.
no,
That's definitely not the
that
most
wasn't the
important
most.
thing that happened in
No, it
volume
definitely is
6.
not.
That's actually like the least important thing in my opinion.
So I don't even know where to go with this. There was a
Well,
lot.
yeah, I'd say for me the focal point of 6 is Mark's trip off world.
Correct. A lot
And
of things happen. He defies
yes,
Cecil.
yes, and
Straight up.
Cecil, Mark is approached by an alien being that looks like Science Dog, and
Which
turns out
is
to be some
great.
sort of insectoid type of alien creature, saying that they need help. Mark's the only one that can help them, and Cecil basically spends a lot of time and effort to talk Mark out of going. I wonder sometimes if Cecil knew
I think he did.
why.
I think he did.
He might have. You never
Just
find
the
out.
conversation. He doesn't say it outright, but the conversation on the bench that he has, I just got the vibe that he knew. But
Yeah, he might. I haven't considered that until this read through, but I feel like maybe he did know. Maybe he did know.
so he's approached by an insectoid creature to go out to outer
Yeah,
space.
and he says yes. He goes. It takes him
He
5 days
goes
to get there.
5 days, goes there, lands, meets with the queen.
No,
No,
meets
not the
with
queen first.
just a few random other citizens and is taken to their monarch.
And is taken to their monarch. You find out these people have like extremely short lifespans. They only live for like 6 months.
9.
9 months. Yep. There's a lot of turnover in their society because of that. And they have elected, or a new monarch has taken over. They didn't elect him. He took over,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, and the way that their society functions, the eldest member of their society is their monarch.
Yep.
Because they need someone to pass down how the planet is ruled and what is done and how it is done. Otherwise, they would forget everything about their civilization. These people also learn by doing. They learn things as they're doing them for the first time. They're incredibly smart, and their capacity for learning new things is super advanced. So they learn very quickly. They have to, obviously, if they only live for 9 months. But I can tell
So,
neither one of us wants to be the one to say who the
no,
monarch
I think you
is.
should. Who is the monarch,
All
Dave?
right. So Mark is led into a room to meet the monarch, and Matt sent me a text. He actually screenshotted this and sent it to me and talked about how Kirkman and Otley are the master of like the ending spread, the ending splash page, and who is staring back at Mark but his dad. Nolan, aka Omni Man, is the monarch of this planet.
I am so happy we were reading this because, like, dude, honestly, I don't remember. Like I said, I remember high beats of like what happened, I didn't even remember how he came back in the picture. You could have told me it could have been issue like 60 or something. I honestly did not remember. So like when I read that, I was completely shocked. Like had no idea who it was going to be. So it's awesome. Like I don't
I
know.
also
I'm
I also
glad.
sent back to Matt just one word, spoilers,
Yeah.
when he sent that, because I hadn't read volume 6 yet in preparation to
Oh,
record
wow.
this episode.
All right. Well, yeah, I probably
That's
shouldn't. I
okay. I
won't
already
do that
knew. I
again.
already knew. I was just messing with you.
Well, yeah, there might be some beats you forget, so I probably shouldn't do that
No,
anymore.
it's good.
But
It's
yeah,
good. I knew exactly. This was I was looking forward to volume 6 for that reason.
so yeah, he pretty much brings Nolan, if I remember correctly, he brings Mark there to defend because he knows some number of Viltrumites are coming to
Yeah,
the
he
planet.
knows he knows that the Empire now knows he's abandoned his post on Earth,
Okay, yep.
and
So
because
your
of
time is
that,
up.
he would be sentenced to death.
Yeah. So your time is up. So some people are coming.
He says he went to this planet as sort of a peace offering, like, hey, if they let me enslave this planet, it was peaceful, I didn't have to do anything, all I had to do was outlive their current emperor, monarch, and then I am older than any of them will ever be, and because of that, I'll never forget how their society is built, ruled, functions, whatever. So I am the perfect person to lead this planet. And it was very easy for me to just take over because after everyone died, I was the only one left that knew anybody from 9 months ago, basically.
Yeah.
And he said it was sort of done as like a peace offering to the Viltrum Empire to maybe soften the whatever the ramifications of his abandonment may be. He was hoping that by showing them he brought them another planet to add to the empire, that it would be better for him. Um, so there's the reunion with Mark and Nolan.
Yep.
It's a very complex one for me because Mark seemingly forgives him quickly, almost instantly. He runs over and hugs him. Um, and for me, and this is personal information time for me. I don't have a relationship with my dad. We haven't spoken in many, 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 many years. So even prior to whenever that relationship fractured for the final time, we were never close. So I can't relate to this the same way that someone like you would, who has a very strong relationship with their father. So I'm really interested in your take on this because for me, someone who's like not oh, I love my dad kind of like heart, there's no heartstrings to pull on this one. My
Yeah.
my perspective on this is, you know, his dad just beat him within an inch of his life, said awful things about his mom, called his mom a pet, fled the planet. To me, it's like, boy, that was a really quick forgiveness, and one that I don't know if I would have the capacity to provide. Thoughts?
Yeah. No, yeah, I can see that. I think honestly though, any very, very close relationship that you've had with someone, like if me and you, I mean, we definitely disagree on some things. But at the end of the day, like you could I think Mark, he's not willing to give up on a relationship, I guess. Especially with his father. I could yes, the relationship between I guess
It
a father and a
this
son
has to
is
be
one
something
thing.
about father-son relationships, because if you
I don't
beat
know.
me within an inch of my life and I didn't see you for a very long time, our reunion, I would not run over and hug you, my friend. I can tell you that.
But I would
There'd
run
be a
over
lot of discussion before that happened.
but I would run over and hug you though. Like that's just maybe that's just the makeup
After you
between
almost
us. And
beat
I
me
don't
to death,
no, after you beat me to say you beat me to death and I was in the Mark position, I wouldn't forget all the times. And I think there was some like
that's this is way
I guess
this is
I
so
mean
much. This is almost taking your son's life.
one, this isn't a realistic thing that can happen, Dave. Two,
That's why we're talking about it, because
yeah, but
there are layers to the art form.
you're adding like this crazy sense of your of you're adding realism on something that's a little bit fantastical. And what
That's
I'm
the
saying,
yeah, exactly. I'm trying to have a compelling conversation about it.
I'm trying to tell you compellingly, if you cross me in some way after some amount of time, I would probably forgive you.
And I would you, but this is not
And I
just
agree.
someone. This is not a disagreement that Mark and Nolan had. This is not just a disagreement. This is something far more serious.
I'm telling you, if you jujitsu and beat my ass, I'm putting in this example to an inch of my life.
Okay. All
After
right.
some amount of time, if I approached you and I missed these conversations so much and missed our times and reminisced of all the good times we've had together, and I saw that you had an ounce of remorse, I would embrace you. That's just me, though. That doesn't have to be you.
I,
That's the
sup-
difference between us, though.
I
And
suppose my takeaway here needs to be that you're a bigger person, and and I'm kind of and I'm holding on to grudges. I guess maybe I don't
no,
know.
it's just the difference kind of between. But like, we're not going to go into the whole psychology of both of us. But like, I think you're justified by how things have happened in your life with certain individuals that are close to you. That you are justified in that approach. I have not experienced. I have not lived a lot of that experience. So like,
That's fair.
like I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's
that's
just.
fair.
I do think you're correct though. Like there is a certain like father son relationship as well too. That's
I mean,
very layered and important. And I consider you like a brother, but like if my father did the same thing, I probably would be very willing to forgive that individual as they are the person who raised me. So I will concede that fact to you as well too.
and that's kind of where I was going. Like,
Yeah, no,
it's not relatable for me because of that.
yeah, and I
So I
have
was
like a very
curious if
strong
there was,
relationship with my
yeah, that's what I
father
wanted to
as
know
well.
what your thoughts
Yeah,
were on it, because maybe there's some sort of, I don't know, interesting nugget to be gleaned from this that someone with a different set of life experiences than me can provide. That's all I was looking for.
I feel like my father too, like is like really like a super dad. And I know like a lot of people say that like the impact my father has had on multiple people's lives outside of my life is like from all different walks of life, all different races. Like he's a special dude, like, and I know that and I recognize that. So yes, I would be willing to forgive, like for sure, like someone like that, you
Okay.
know.
All
So
right. It just struck me as, you know,
I don't know, maybe
it
not
was
in that
so
just moment,
fast.
like right there, like he's just like, yeah, dad,
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
let's give it like a day,
I
like
guess
maybe.
there was a couple panels where like
Yeah,
that showed Mark making a fist and then Nolan making a
that's true.
fist
Yeah, they're
and
like,
then Mark, run over, hug, tears, the whole thing. And like almost instantly as like Nolan is showing him around where
yeah,
he
like
lives
nothing
now.
happened. Like, oh hey,
Like,
buddy.
but there were some moments where, Nolan parented a little bit. He snapped at him at one point. I
Yes,
forget what Mark said, but he snapped at him and was like, "Hey, I'm still your father." And
yeah.
I'm reading this, I'm going like, dude, barely. Like you almost killed him not that long ago. Like, I feel like in some ways you've given up parental rights at this point. You abandoned the kid, and I guess this is again, my life's experience talking here.
It is though. Like that's the thing. No, that's the thing though. Like, and I'm glad we can have that conversation. But yeah, through your experiences, yeah,
Yeah.
you're not wrong. I don't think you're wrong.
So there's another big reveal.
Oh yeah,
You find out very soon after that Nolan has taken a lover. He
Saya.
has her name was Andresa, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So he has a partner, a lover. They show this, or Mark finds out by Andresa walking into the room, and they have like this really sloppy, wet, open mouth tongue kind
That
of.
could have went really in a
Yeah.
different direction. I'm really happy you cleaned that up. But go ahead.
What?
Sloppy web. Whoa, where
They
is this
like
explicit? This
they
is
did some
explicit,
sort
right?
of weird like tongue wrapping around thing.
Yeah,
And Mark
okay.
was like, dude, like WTF, like what about mom? And like Nolan refuses to talk about Debbie the entire time that Mark is there. Nolan is compartmentalizing pretty severely. He's like, nope, that's off limits. We're not talking about it. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about her. This is my life now. I can never go back to Earth. If I go back to Earth, I'm jeopardizing everybody and everything there. Like, pretend it never happened, because it didn't, as far as I'm concerned.
So I think with this, this has definitely happened in my family a lot. So I
Well,
think,
okay.
sorry, no, the whole, this goes back to your whole like dad point thing, not the tongue wrapping and the wet. Oh
No, I
god,
know
no,
that. I know that,
no,
but I'm
no.
still like,
But like, no,
who
no.
knows
This is
what's coming next?
there. I have seen. I am not afraid to have like tough conversations with people because like at
Neither
the
am
end of the
I.
day, I know you aren't, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have the tough conversation, put it out in the air, get it done, move forward. I think part of the like forgiveness thing between those two, initially they really don't address any of the issues. Like you said, they just kind of breeze over it and it's like, yep, we're not talking about that. We're moving forward. Let me show you around this place. Let me show how great this is. Like they don't really address what happened. So that makes it easier to just kind of move on like
Yeah,
nothing has happened.
yeah,
When in
that's
when in
true.
fact a lot of stuff has happened.
That's true.
And that's a human
It's
behavior.
a
Like
good
that's
point.
happened
Yeah,
a lot.
that's a really good point. It's very real. Um,
Yeah.
we're not done with big reveals.
Points to Kirkman.
So you also find out shortly after Mark learns that his dad has a new lover, a new partner. That Mark also has a new brother. Um, his name is
We don't know the name
Oliver.
yet. We don't know the name yet though, or do we? They don't name him
We
yet.
don't, but I'm just saying it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was gonna say I think his
That
name is Oliver, but
yeah,
I can't
those
remember.
people they choose their own name once they're old enough to do so. They get to pick their own name. They don't name their children.
Okay.
So he has no name yet. You're right, but he because Andresa's people age so rapidly and Viltrumites live for so long. Oliver is like light purple skinned, 2 weeks old, but looks like he's 2 years old, and that's sort of as they're starting to discuss what is going on. I have a brother. The Viltrumites show up. 3 of them hunting Nolan. And I don't want to spend a ton of time
Yeah,
on
dude.
what happens, but
Yeah.
there's a
Some beat
fight.
downs ensue.
Yeah,
Yeah, some beat downs ensue.
there's some fighting that happens. Mark is tested by some real and true Viltrum soldiers. It's not the same thing as fighting his dad, and I think we learn
No.
with what we saw happen to Alan in the previous volume and how brutal and violent this assault is on Andresa's planet, that Nolan was likely holding back when he fought Mark. Holding back quite a bit.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, because he held his own against three of them. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah,
And Mark couldn't do
he,
anything again. He
he had
punched
no
that one
gas.
dude
No
and
gas.
he
No
hurt his
gas.
hand. Couldn't fly away fast enough. Nolan charges Mark with protecting Andresa and the baby, and he ends up getting found out by the third Viltrumite. The other two are, fighting Nolan, and they slaughter every being on this planet for the most part. They kill just hundreds of thousands in a very, very short amount of time. Um, and I've got a final thought on this, so I'm gonna pause. If there's anything else you want to say about like the fight, what happens, kind of give some more high points, and then I have one wrap up statement that I want to make. So get everything you need to say
No,
out before I wrap this thing up.
I really don't have too much. Issue 29, I just noted that was like the big fight issue.
Mm-hmm.
As the resident art snob, this is the Ryan Otley I know. Last trades we were getting there,
Yes.
like issue 28, but 29, that's the Otley I remember and have in my head from all the big fight scenes later in the Invincible story we're going to get to. I think you covered it. Like we're going pretty long on this, like so I'm good. I think the last issue, I don't know if you're going to wrap that up, but the
Go ahead.
last issue, there it kind of ends somewhat romance focused, like the last ish volume 3 did, where there was a kind of a romance cliffhanger. We come back to Earth, we kind of explain what was going on, why Mark was gone, and there's a big romance cliffhanger at the end too. So not only are you going to get this violent, bloody conflict, but you get the real life Mark on Earth's moments too that I love. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I want to mention the fight on Andrisa's planet ends with Mark and Nolan thinking that they've won. Uh, two of the Viltrumites are dead. Nolan thinks the third one is dead. And then right before this dude dies, he radios, "It's done."
Ooh, I missed that.
And then
Dang.
Mark kind of passes out. Nolan's knocked out.
So that was when he passed. All right, that's how they got.
When Mark comes back to consciousness, um, the Viltrumites are there. Their ship is there, and there's one clear leader that we'll end up learning more about him later as well, I think. But if it's who I think it is, but he basically, as they're taking Nolan is like strapped down on a some sort of stretcher that is also a restraint. They're taking Nolan away. They're putting him on the ship, and they tell Mark, "Hey, so you survived, so congratulations. Like, survival of the fittest is how we do this whole thing. So now we're considering you to be part of the Viltrumite Empire, and you're a Viltrum soldier. So I know we're going to give Nolan a really long time to turn Earth. We're going to give you 100 years to finish what he started. So if you don't do it, there will be consequences. So see you later, kid." And then they peace out. And then after that, Mark helps Andrisa's people rebuild. They rebuild the city after all of their people were massacred and destroyed, all their buildings and whatnot. And then Andrisa basically, she's old at this point. She's elderly. She's the leader of her people. And she essentially tells Mark, "Hey, I can't keep Oliver. I can't keep the baby here because who's going to raise him? There's no one here that can raise him because his lifespan is going to be so much longer. You have to take him with you. You have to take him to Earth." And then Mark reluctantly takes the baby to Earth and leaves it with Debbie. Says, "Hey, can you watch him while we figure out what to do?" And he also tells Debbie that he saw his dad. And he tells Debbie that Nolan refused to talk about her. So, God, poor Debbie. She
she's
learns
trying to be a real estate agent. She's getting her life back.
And in the course of 5 or 10 minutes, she finds out that not only did her son reconcile with his estranged father, but that he also has moved on from her to the point of having a child with another woman. And now she's stuck with this kid. I can't imagine what that would feel like. Put that in human terms, and that's probably an emotional burden I am unwilling to bear. We'll find out more about this next month when we read volume 7 and 8. But the thing I wanted to,
they have that baby looks at her, and she looks at that baby, and they have a glance.
Yeah, there's a glimmer in her eye. She's like, "Okay, I see you, kid. We know what's gonna happen." But for me, volume 6 is kind of the tipping point for the series. This is where Invincible turns into classic Invincible. This is the point in the comic where you finally see the true threat of the Viltrum Empire. People have been talking about it for months and months and months in the single issues. You've got 20 some odd issues of talk about the big scary Viltrumites, and now you've seen it for yourself firsthand. This conflict on Andrisa's planet, the discovery of Oliver, the reuniting of Nolan and Mark, however brief it was, these are inciting events that carry the comic through to its end. All of the things that happen to Mark and his supporting cast, everything is born out of this one volume.
It's very Viltrum's focus, right?
Yes. This really does set Mark on the trajectory that will be his life. All of his life's accomplishments and conflicts are going to be born out of the 2 volumes that we just read, for the most part. There's stuff that happens, that isn't directly related to this, but in terms of the Viltrumites being the main antagonist in the comic, they're here and they're not going away. You don't always see them, but that danger is clear and present and front and center, and it is terrifying because if 3 can almost kill Nolan and Mark, what will a whole army of them do? And I'm really excited to find out and talk about it with you because I already know what's going to happen because I read this stuff last year. But for you, I'm really excited to get your take on more of the stuff that's coming.
And they are so terrifying and menacing that Dave has their t-shirt. So make sure you hit the Skybound shop today.
Yeah, use code CDWA to get 10%. Actually, no, that won't work. That code won't work.
Don't try it, guys. It's
but
work.
Rob, if you ever listen to this and you want to do some sort of sponsorship, we'll gladly shill Skybound merch. I'm happy to do that for you, man. Love the comic, love your content. Let's move on to the news.
It's time for the news. From Matt. Because Dave doesn't really pay attention to this.
All right, I'm going to try to get through news as fast as possible. So,
we probably should speed it up, huh? We talked a lot of Invincible this time.
We talked, which I think is good. I just had, did you see anything about Superman Legacy?
Superman
Legacy was announced. Superman Legacy is announced. James Gunn is indeed directing it. Initially, he did not want to do a Superman movie. Like, this was years ago. He's like, I'll never do Superman, but he kind of had a change of heart, which is okay. But he mentioned in the announcing this movie, it's going to come out July 11th, 2025, hopefully.
Jeez.
He says Clark is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. His kindness is in a world that thinks kindness is old-fashioned. I'm buying Dave a ticket. I'll be down in Texas. He doesn't even have to come. I'll buy him a ticket, though.
No, you won't.
Truth. Yes. There are some crazy sales on PSN right now, so make sure you check that out if you're a PlayStation person. Like, I'm talking 75% off some games. There's this retros and remasters bundle thing where you can get Shredder's Revenge is like $20, but there's a lot of other games you can get for I'm talking sub $20 on some games. So if you're a PlayStation person, make sure you kind of check that out.
I don't want to rain on the parade here, but
what's up?
Do these sales go past March 27th?
Yep, they sure
do. Okay, because this
they're
episode won't be out until March 27th. No, that'd be messed up.
Yeah, no, they're like 2 weeks from now. Okay. I would mention it. Okay. So you got, I think,
just making sure
the end of March, early January.
Okay. So you'll have 4 days after the episode releases to.
True story.
Spoiler: we record these episodes a week in advance.
Yeah, exactly. You definitely will have time to get on it when you hear that. Hopefully, if you listen to it in a timely fashion. Dave, did you see that over 9 billion people have died in Elden Ring?
No.
9 billion people have died in Elden Ring.
Hell yeah.
Surprisingly, 67% were through NPC characters and boss characters. I figured that would be higher, but there was I think it was 14% of them had actually fallen off the map or died through environmental ways.
Yeah, that's a big.
Is that
thing.
A thing? Okay.
Yeah, because there's
no seems like a high.
There's no mission markers. There's no anything pointing you in the direction, and there are a ton of secrets in FromSoft games. So if you see a weird mountain pass type of thing, or there's a cliff that you can maybe scale down to find a secret area, people will try, and they will try over and over and over and over and over again. So yeah, that tracks. That tracks.
But it's just, I was 9 billion, my God, these games aren't difficult. So
yeah, there's one spot in the game, I can't remember where it's at, but there's actually some invisible walking bridges. And the only way to know where it's safe, there's an item in the game that are these little glowing rocks that you throw, and if they don't fall all the way out of sight, they land on the ground. You can jump. That's invisible bridge, walkable, whatever. So a lot of trial and error to find stuff like that for people.
Got you. And my last news, going through this as fast as we can, is, um, I saw this at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and I didn't know if it was real or not. But per CBR, there is a new digital comics platform called Global Comics coming in the near future. It has, I believe, it has a web-based thing already. You can go on and kind of subscribe and do like a Comixology Unlimited. But this company, they're doing an app.
What's it
They're doing
called?
like an Global Comics. They're doing an app, and the reason it got like a tweet or whatever was they're getting Image on board, Boom is on board, Valiant is on board, and Archie is on board to join this company like in a major way. So I'm
Interesting.
excited to see what this looks like. If it's even remotely workable, that's where I'll probably not. That's where I'll be buying books from those publishers from. If their app is somewhat clean and makes sense, that's where I'll be going. So they're beta testing the app now. So hopefully, when in a months or whatever, I'll definitely be reporting back on that. Any new cutting edge digital platform, I will definitely be keeping an eye out for because I want to get off Comixology as soon as possible.
So I'm on their website right now. Um, One, I love everything you just said. It's especially topical considering what I talked about last week, about how difficult it would be to find a company willing to try to disrupt Amazon's digital comics operation. Their website is not super
The most,
great.
yeah, it's not great.
Like, it's hard. You can't just look at comics by publisher. You can only look
See,
at
I don't.
genre.
Yeah, I don't know if they have like the unlimited reading thing you can do for a year. I don't know if I want to dump money into that to try it out and see until some of like the major publishers are on
Yeah, I
there.
mean,
I don't know.
Heavy Metal's on here, Source Point's on here, AWA is on here.
Ooh, AW's. I
Yeah,
do
there's
like AWA stuff.
some of the bigger independent
Independent.
studios are already on this site, so that's a promising start.
Yeah. I
Promising
wonder
start.
if
I
like
think
the
I saw
AW
Top Cow was on here. I think I saw
Top
something
Cows
from
on
Top
there.
Cow. So
Like I just
interesting.
gotta.
This is definitely something to keep an eye on because I would love to obviously get an alternative to Comixology. And I know you would too, and probably a lot of other people.
For sure.
Arcana's on here.
TKO is on there. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that too.
That's so
Cool.
yeah. I'll definitely look into that. So that was my last quickly covered news. I kind of
Okay,
wanted to get into
we'll
playing.
we'll move on. So I did quite a bit of reading in the last week. As far as my playing goes, I pretty much only played Apex Legends. I haven't been playing anything else. I did get to play Apex with you one night, which was great. Unfortunately, you got on the game again, and I didn't get an invite. I don't know what happened. Maybe you forgot that I play the game, but
You were busy, man, driving back from Houston. I don't want to
I was
interrupt
already
you.
home. How do you think I sent you that picture?
I don't know what you're doing, man. I don't want to interrupt you.
It takes 5 minutes to Google. If I was driving home from Houston at noon, 1 p.m.,
Dude, I'm
I
not
was
doing
I
a
was
good
home by
job.
9 o'clock when you were playing Apex.
I got slapped and beat down. I was letting this man be for a day,
Can't have
so it's fine.
spoilers.
It wasn't really
Just to be fully
It's fine.
transparent, as I'm driving home from Houston on Sunday, I had recorded the Formula One race that day. Matt calls me while I'm driving, answer the call, and the first thing he says is, "I turned on the race today," and then he was continuing to talk, and I just shut it down. I said, "I don't want to hear anything. Please don't tell me anything about the race. I don't want to know anything about it. I don't want to know if it was good, bad. I want to know absolutely nothing. It's like telling me movie spoilers. I don't want to hear anything about the race before I can watch the race." I'd managed to avoid all spoilers all weekend. Couldn't have it ruined in the 25th hour by a phone call. You're rolling your eyes at me. I don't know why. I just wanted to protect my own viewing experience.
Known this man for 20 years. You think I don't know how important spoilers are to him? I wouldn't spoil anything, but it's fine. Moving on. I'll go ahead.
That's all I was playing. I can do some reading, but I wanted to see where you're at with this because I got a couple of things to talk about that I read.
So I read two things like on the Marvel front, which has been a while for me. I read Punisher #8.
Why?
If you know anything about that series, I've been so anti that whole series,
Yeah.
but secretly I've been reading. I've been reading it the whole time, complaining about it. I'm not paying for it. It's on the app. Issue
Well, you
number
are
8,
paying
though.
for it in a
Yeah,
way. You are paying for it with your time.
yeah, I'm paying for it with my time and a small modicum of pennies that I am actually paying for it. Issue number 8 wasn't the worst. I don't know if Aaron can stick the landing. If he can, it's starting to. It's a very divisive book, and I can see how even myself am turned off by the book, but it's coming back to be a Punisher story, if that makes sense in a way. I don't like that they retconned and made him a serial killer. I feel like that's just completely off limits. But this book, this specific issue, wasn't the worst thing I read.
You remember what you
Just put
said about 17 minutes ago about
what's that?
when we were talking about Invincible and Mark went in to pick up Science Dog and the dude at the comic shop was like,
Yeah,
"Hey, this
but
book sucks, but I'm still reading it."
bro, I don't got that paper. I don't got that paper, and I didn't scream at anyone for reading Punisher. I low key read it and I've been reading it by myself.
I don't
Just
remember what
stewing getting
episode it
mad.
happened in, but you talked
Oh, dude,
about this
it's
Punisher comic
embarrassment. It's an
and
embarrassment.
you took it out back behind the woodshed,
It's an embarrassment.
and here you are reading it still in secret 8 months later.
Hey man, so just wait for the
You
Superman
are the
collection.
thing that you despise. I just want you to own
Wait for the
that.
Superman boxes to come away. A character I guess I've also taken to the woodshed a little bit. I read the new reboot, repackaging of Miles Morales #1.
Can't do it.
Wasn't horrible. It
Really?
wasn't horrible. It
Okay.
wasn't horrible.
Good.
If the problem with that series, it's going to go for about 12 issues like this, and then it's just going to go off the rails. The
Mhm.
previous one I didn't hate either. I thought it was fine for a while.
Oh, the previous
And
one was
then
great until they changed his
they started doing
costume
all
and
the
sent him through time or whatever.
yeah, exactly. Once they started
Dimension
doing that,
hopping, fighting evil versions of himself.
selling,
No,
yep.
not
Once they
interested.
started doing that, it got off the rails. So unlimited, whatever. I mean, like you said, the only thing I'm paying for it, but the only thing I'm really paying for it with is my time. So if it's, I don't know, I was just like, I need to use Marvel Unlimited. I haven't turned this thing on in months, so
Yeah, I haven't.
let me
I
check
thought
this
about that
out.
the other day. Actually, I haven't read anything on Unlimited. I got my comics last Thursday. There was another issue of Captain Marvel in there. I put it in the stack, and I have 9 issues of Captain Marvel.
Yeah, they're all in the app. You just
I'm like,
read them on the
I can
app.
read 5 or 6 of these on the app. Like, I should really start doing that.
Yeah,
But
you like collecting it though, so that
I
makes
do.
sense.
It's just a matter of how far behind I am. I just keep reading. I'm reading other stuff, man. Obviously,
So
go ahead.
no, you're good.
No. If you had more stuff you're reading, finish it.
No, I have one other thing, and there are two kind of points.
Okay.
So I have fallen big time into how cool crossplay is. So, and by crossplay, I mean in video games, like playing Xbox to PlayStation.
Uh-huh.
And with the integration of Discord on the PlayStation, I was like, I want to try to play with an Xbox player and see how it is. And it is like a very seamless experience.
Yeah.
So I just think it's really cool. I haven't done it. So like it was like, oh, I was playing with our buddy Sheridan, and I was like, this is pretty great. So the reason why I wanted to try out crossplay though is I got a little reckless. And
No,
you know how
no.
my brain is, Dave, when I get my mindset on something, I just got to do it. And I've been thinking about it for forever. So I invested and bought the DualSense Edge controller. Let me tell you something about this controller now. I love the Xbox controller. This is the $200 controller for PlayStation.
This is the one that you drove to stores to buy the day it came out to find out it was online only after your friend told you to check to see if it's for sale anywhere yet.
And I went to other stores this week and I couldn't find it, and stumbled upon a Walmart and they had one, and I was like, I really don't want to buy this thing from Walmart, but I'm going to buy it from Walmart. Dude, this controller is butter. It's so good.
Better than the Elite?
It's better than me.
It's that stick placement for me, man. I can't do that stick placement for
Oh.
shooters. I gotta have the offset
Dude,
sticks for shooters.
Dude, but it feel I agree to a fault.
The offset
But it
sticks
felt-
make such a difference. The Xbox
That's
controller,
fine.
that's what I need.
I kind of did better with this, honestly. But like playing the shooters, like
What were you playing with it?
COD, of course. The feedback though, like the vibration, dude, it's so much better. Like it's so much better.
You want to hear something that's probably gonna make you think I'm insane?
No, say it.
So when I play Apex,
Yeah,
on Xbox or any
Yeah.
system for that matter.
no, you play it on Xbox after slapping me down. It's cool.
I do play it on other systems, but primarily on Xbox. I actually turn off controller vibrations because I don't want it to affect my aim.
No, that's not crazy. You're competitive guy. It's an edge. I get it. You don't want your controller
Yeah, exactly.
vibrating out of your hands. I get it. But for us casuals, I don't know. I like it.
Fair enough.
So PlayStation's looking real good to me right now because I'm like, oh, I just play Call of Duty with Sheridan. I could just cross play and play it. Like I don't really need.
It's not gonna last. It's not gonna last.
Man.
No, I do know. I've seen
PlayStation.
I've seen this story 1,000 times, man. I know how this episode ends. Yeah, you've done this for as long as I've known you. It's not gonna last.
But we've never had an arrangement before. You're literally saving me money. Like that's
not gonna last.
All right, that's it.
Any money you saved, you've given back to Sony in the form of a $200 controller.
That's true.
You're back to zero again.
That's true. You're not wrong.
So, other than reading Invincible, obviously had to read a lot of Invincible for this episode.
That's a lot.
I caught up on some Massiveverse stuff in the last week as well. So I'm caught up on Radiant Black. I don't know where you're at. Did you get to the episode or the issue when Nathan went back to LA?
No, I'll start reading it. If you're gonna read it like that, then I'm gonna read it like that. I've been working.
I read it whenever I feel like reading it. I don't know.
No, I'm like really far behind in all of this.
So I finished The Dead Lucky.
Good.
It started out really strong and it finished strong, but like in the middle, I don't know, it kind of lost me a little bit. I still really liked it. Shift shows up near the end. One of Radiant Black's villains. The dude that like makes and sells weaponry that's powered by the Radiance.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, he shows up in Dead Lucky, and there's an interesting thing that happens between him and Bibby, which I thought was kind of fun. It's nice to see characters from the other books show up. And I also read, and I brought issue number 1 up with me. This just came this week. It's a comic called No One.
I've seen that.
It's the newest Massiveverse book.
It's a Massiveverse book?
It is a Massiveverse book.
Oh no, I missed it. All right, well.
And it is right up your alley, dude. It's set in Pittsburgh. It's a 10-issue series.
I need to add it to my pull straight.
It literally came out like last week. Like it just came out. But
okay.
It is a dark and gritty vigilante story. It's kind of
the black guy. It's like
no. It's got sort of like a crime noir feel to it in the way that the first issue is presented. Dude, as I was reading it, I was thinking to myself that I couldn't wait to tell you about it because it feels like right up your alley.
That's legit. Like I have no idea what this is. So like I'm excited now to go to the shop and get it. I didn't know.
I really liked the first issue. Really, really liked the first.
I'm really excited.
I'm actually really bummed that it's only 10 issues. Also, I forgot to mention at the end of Dead Lucky, they mentioned that she will be in this year's Supermassive one-shot, and that she's coming back in June. So I think there's going to be another Dead Lucky series starting in June.
Only things I collect in paper.
Yep.
Massiveverse.
So that was my Massiveverse catch-up, and then this next book, I actually didn't read it yet.
Got to pause you real quick.
Yeah.
No One. Is
No
what it's-
one.
I need to add it
No
to my-
slash
I'm-
one.
I'm legit adding it to my pull list right
And
to make sure I get
Kyle
it.
Higgins is writing this one too.
He is?
Yeah. He's got like there's like a co-writer credit on it, so I don't know how much he's writing of it, but he's definitely he's the writer credit. He's the first
What's that?
writer credit.
What's that cover price, homie?
Probably $3.99.
I was just
It
curious.
is $3.99.
Okay, we're adding that to the list.
Speaking of
Thank you.
cover price, the other book that like I said, I haven't read it yet. It's from Greg Rucka. It's like kind of a sci-fi book. I bought it because it's the same creative team that did a comic called We Stand on Guard that I really, really liked.
That's what's his. I know that artist. I can't.
Yeah.
Think of the name.
Something Troutman.
Yeah. Yeah.
I forget his first name. But Greg Rucka writes this. It is huge. It is it's bigger than your standard comic book. It's something between a comic book and a magazine in terms of size. This is only $5.99, and it's
Great
so
value.
thick. It's like, I don't know, probably 50 or 60 pages for $6. And I love the creative team. I love sci-fi stuff. They're like in mechs fighting like bug aliens or something. I don't know. I'm sure it's good because it's Greg Rucka.
Down with it.
But yeah, I'll have more to say about that. I was really excited about it, and I just wanted to talk about it before I read it because I think it's really cool that it's like an oversized book and it's not super expensive. Like if Marvel put something like that out, it'd be $12.99 and that'd be less pages. So I wanted to give shout out to, doing something cool for not a crazy amount of money, and the interior art's beautiful. So should be a good read. Yeah.
I need a glass of Pinot Noir while I'm reading that with my art snobbish.
So that's it for me for reading. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, bro. About to go bust this dual cinch edge out. Oh my gosh, Dave. Apex, I'm on.
All right. Well, I know, Matt, you do a lot of flip-flopping back and forth on the video game consoles. Obviously, you're in a Sony phase right now. It's my true hope and desire that no one flip-flops on us. I'd like to know that everyone's here for the long haul. And to help ensure that there is a long haul, we need you all to share the podcast. Like it, comment on it, share it on your Instagram story, tweet about it. I don't care. Just get us out there. It helps. It truly does help. The more interaction we get, the more people see our content. And I think the content's pretty good. I like making it, so I'd like to keep making it. Help us out. Do your duty as loyal listeners and watchers. So that being said, as always, the Twitter handles are in the description of the video or audio episode. We'll see y'all in 7 days. I don't know what we're talking about in 7 days, but we'll have something. But until then, my name is Dave.
And I'm Matt.
Take care of yourselves.